If you were to describe being in your early 20s as a man in one word, combative might be the first word that comes to mind. Being in your early 20s as a man is a time when you don't earn much money, girls aren't all that interested in you, and it feels like life is just coming at you. Everything feels like a struggle, and it can feel like life is really out to get you. And when you look at the men's self-improvement space, you can see that attitude reflected in the content. Everything feels combative. Modern women are the problem and we must defeat them. The entire system is corrupt, and even the idea of the Sigma male is the idea of this man who has rejected this corrupt system to go his own way. Most men in their early 20s view life as this thing that is opposing them and they must defeat it. And honestly, I can relate to this perspective. I lived it for years. It felt like life was constantly attacking me. But now that I'm getting older, I just turned 26 about a week ago, I'm starting to see that this perspective is not true. Life is actually pretty great. It's just that being a man in your early 20s is very challenging. It's kind of like being in boot camp in the military. Everybody shits on you and you have no idea what's going on. But if you get through this phase successfully, life really opens up for you. It becomes easier to make money, you can have a better social life, the girls are more interested in you, you're more mature, and you have more wisdom, so life just becomes easier. But that's as long as you handle your early 20s correctly. Most guys end up letting life overwhelm them in this phase. They get bitter or they end up giving up and settling for a mediocre life. And because they do this, these men's whole lives end up being like their early 20s. It means they'll always have financial problems, relationship problems, and they'll always struggle to get respect from anybody. They never get to enjoy the spoils of male life. The key to a great life as a man is to handle your early 20s successfully. And once you get through this phase, life will get much better. Trust me. And in this video, I'm gonna give you some advice from my own experience going through this phase of life so that you can handle it successfully. And if you follow this advice, you will have the best chance of making it through. And I wanna be clear about something. Some of you might be older or younger than this early 20s phase that I'm talking about, but still going through this same experience of life. I call it the early 20s phase because that's where most guys go through it, but you can have started this phase of trying to build yourself as a man at 16 and get done with it at 22, or you could just be now starting to try and get your crap together at 30, and you might not be done until you're 36. But this advice is for any of you, regardless of age, who feel like you're still in that phase of life where it's very combative and it feels like it's hard to get anything and life is constantly opposing you. The first piece of advice I have is to accept where you're at in life. Social media has us all convinced that we should have conquered the world by 25, and this creates the expectation that we shouldn't make mistakes. Some of you already know that when I was 21 years old, I had a failed career as a real estate agent. I sold a couple houses early on, but I couldn't keep the momentum going. I didn't know what I was doing. I ended up failing, going broke, and having to move back in with my parents. Now, I'm not gonna go into all the details of the story in this video. I've done that in multiple videos in the past, but even as recently as a year ago, I would look back on this phase of my life with such regret. I would just be wishing that I could get another shot at it and make up for the mistakes that I made with the knowledge that I now have. I thought I should have known better, but really, why? I mean, I was 21. I'd never had a career before. I didn't know anything about real estate or sales. Why would it be reasonable for me to expect success? We hold ourselves to these unrealistic standards of perfection. We look back with regret over the girl we lost or the career we lost, but it's ridiculous. Life is a game and you have to learn to play it. Mistakes are a part of the learning process, and right now you are a beginner in the game of life, so there's going to be a lot of mistakes. And if you can take this attitude to it, when mistakes happen, you don't get angry at life, you just learn and improve. If you're playing chess and you make a mistake a couple times in a row, you don't get angry at chess and wish the game was different, you just learn and don't make that mistake again next time. And life is just like chess, and right now you are a beginner in the game of life, and you need to understand it's going to take a long time and a lot of practice to become a master. But the good news is the game is not random. Once you learn the rules, you can be successful without luck. You don't need luck when you know what you're doing. If you know how to diet, you don't need luck to lose weight. You just do what you need to do and you lose weight. So it's important in this phase of life to accept where you're at and forgive yourself for making mistakes and being human. Lesson 2 is do the right thing over and over and over again. Consistently doing the right habits is what leads to success. Going to the gym over and over and over again is the only way to get the body body that you want. Showing up to work and doing your absolute best over and over and over again is how you start making good money. A lot of this comes down to attitude. You can't have this entitled feeling about yourself of thinking that everything should happen for you right now. You have to put the right energy into things and then trust that what you put in is what you will get back. Having a good attitude and doing the right things consistently is a superpower. When I was 22 years old, I worked at a GNC and I was so bitter that I worked here, and I had this horrible attitude about having this job. And full disclosure, GNC is a god-awful company and it's a terrible place to work, so it's not like it was entirely on me, but my attitude definitely did not help the situation. So I'd show up to work without my uniform on, I'd get in arguments with the regional manager, I'd half-ass the job, and so I ended up getting fired from that job. Fast forward a couple years and I ended up working at the UPS store. This store was one of the 5 busiest UPS stores in the country, so it was very stressful and it would have been very easy for me to have a negative attitude about this job as well. But I didn't do that this time. This time I decided to show up, do my best, and commit to helping the business thrive. I had a good attitude about it and I made the most of it. And because of that, in the 18 months that I worked there, I ended up getting promoted a couple times, and I could have ended up being the manager of the store if I hadn't decided to go work for myself instead. And what you can take from these two examples is that in life, the things in front of you are really what you make of them. And if you just show up consistently and do the right things with the right attitude, just about any situation can become positive. Lesson 3 is to stop being combative towards life and let life instruct you. Like we talked about at the beginning, the average guy in his early 20s has a very combative attitude towards life. And like I said, I've been there. I had this extremely combative attitude and I felt like I needed it. I felt like it drove me. I had this real like fighter attitude, and it's better to have that attitude than to be wimpy and pathetic and powerless. But the more I've grown, and especially recently, I've learned that the quicker you can get rid of this combative attitude, the better. Because here's the thing, life is not trying to hold you back, and women aren't trying to screw you over, and hell, society isn't even trying to screw you over, really. I mean, sure, there is corruption and there is an agenda going on, but that's always been the way it's been throughout human history. And part of the game of life is learning how to win in spite of these things. Stop looking at life as something that's holding you back and start looking at it as something that's teaching you. When a girl dumps you, that's teaching you something about dating. When you have a combative attitude towards life, it allows you to avoid responsibility, and so you fail to learn the lesson you needed to learn. So if you have that combative attitude and a girl dumps you, you get mad at all women. You end up blaming female nature and you take that energy to the next woman that you interact with. And by doing this, you don't learn the lesson that that situation was trying to teach you. And because you didn't learn anything, you just keep repeating this pattern over and over again. But when you choose to learn instead of being combative, you can actually take a look at the situation and understand why it went badly. Maybe the girl liked to go out drinking with her friends all the time, and so now you've learned that you shouldn't date the kind of girl who likes to go out and get drunk with her friends. Or maybe you weren't being the best version of yourself, and so you learned that if you don't show up and be the best version of yourself, you're not gonna get the best of life. As much as it's easier to be combative towards life, you're not gonna learn anything if you do that. And if you don't learn, you're gonna stay stuck in the same situation. So recapping this video, if you can learn to accept that you're in the beginning stages of the game of life, and that's going to come with a lot of mistakes, but you still show up every day with a good attitude and consistency, and you drop that combative attitude and start learning what lessons life is trying to teach you in these situations, you'll make it through this phase of life as quickly as possible and get to enjoy the best that life has to offer. Guys, if you want to start crushing your goals and becoming the ultimate version of yourself, click the link in the description box below to learn about my NPC to free coaching program. And if you want to watch a video that is a complete comprehensive breakdown of the 4 phases of male life, including the one that we just discussed, you can click right here.